Mr. Vaknin. You're known as the world's foremost authority on narcissistic personality disorder, but you have achievements in many other areas and many other disciplines. I just found out casually whilst you were making a coffee that you have a PhD in philosophy. Was that your first PhD in philosophy?
Yes. Yeah. My first PhD was philosophy. Before that, I was technically a professor of physics in Israel, in the Technion. I started my studies at the university at age 9, so I had a bit of a head start.
You were studying in university at age 9?
Yeah, I'm not so proud of it. I think it was an idiotic decision by people who panicked. When my IQ was diagnosed as very high, I started like all gifted children. I was a troublemaker at school. I gave my principal a heart attack, and then I sent him flowers and gave him a second heart attack, which was not very conducive towards his attitude towards me. I don't know why after that he hated me and so on. So they sent me as a troublemaker because I was organizing kids and making a mess and so on. Sent me as a troublemaker. The suspicion was that I'm retarded. Seriously, they thought I'm mentally retarded, and they sent me to be tested, and it was off the charts, and it was so off the charts that a group of professors in Tel Aviv University and in Haifa decided that there is absolutely no point for me to continue at school.
Your IQ was off the charts?
Yes.
And what age were you when you were IQ tested?
My IQ was tested 3 times.
Right.
Once when I was 9, and then again when I was 25, and then again 35.
And what kind of a result were you getting between 9 and
9, I was 180. Strangely, it's going up. Usually as you age, IQ goes down. But I think because I constantly exercise my brain, I mean, I read and write and analyze and well over 10 hours a day. I do nothing else but this.
Yeah.
I think it's simply, like a muscle, it builds up.
Yes. Yeah.
So it was 180, 185, 190. No, sorry, 180, 190, 185.
Okay. Which, in terms of IQ, ranks you globally.
There are 6 people with 190.
Right.
7 people.
In the world.
In the whole world.
So, at age 8, they're looking at this kid and they go, highest IQ in Israel, I presume, at that time.
Among the highest IQs in the world, yes. Absolutely.
And their decision was no more school.
There was a bit of panic.
Right.
There were no protocols what to do with gifted children. There were no institutions.
Yeah.
There was no conveyor belt, if you wish. Gifted children put in, genius comes out. They didn't know what to do. There was at that time a movement, a global movement, of finding gifted children, creating special frameworks for them in institutions. Alice Miller wrote the book about the gifted child and the family. And so there was all this brouhaha about gifted children, later called geniuses. But they didn't know what to do. So they opted for the worst conceivable solution as we know today. We know that this should never be done.
Right.
They took me out of my peer group. They catapulted me to the end of the primary school because technically they had to do that. But starting at age 9, I was forced to go to university.
Do you think that contributed to the mental health issues, the formation of a personality disorder?
I think it made me a social misfit, and I was not only detached from my peer group, I was also detached from, for example, from the company of girls. I mean, everyone around me was 20 plus. In Israel, you serve 3 years in the army. So you start university at the age of 21.
Right.
Everyone around me was 20 plus.
Yeah.
21, 25, 22.
Yeah.
Most women in this group did not find me interesting. I don't know why. I thought I was cute. I mean, no dates, no nothing, horrible.
Nothing.
So, and I was 9 already. Truly formed men. So seriously, I mean, I didn't develop the necessary social skills to interact with peers.
So even though you had very high IQ, you're still a 9-year-old.
IQ is a single parameter, and by the way, extremely limited, because IQ tests in the West geared towards measuring specific capabilities. mainly analytic capabilities, but not, for example, synthetic, not creative capabilities. So you can be a genius at the piano, or genius painter, and still your IQ would be 60. So it's it doesn't mean much. It means that you would be good probably with language, with mathematics, so on. And indeed, I excelled in physics and so on. But they were totally at a loss. At the age of 9, I started to study at university, and they allowed me, for example, at the age of 12, to go to medical school. I mean, I witnessed pathology classes. I don't want you to throw up because you've had breakfast, presumably, but pathology classes are really, really ugly things.
This is cutting corpses? And
yes, including female corpses, which must have had some effect on me.
Yes.
And I've witnessed that at the age of 12.
And there were no adults present that said, maybe this isn't great for us?
Right, not a single one of these professors, I want to name names, I mean, but they were like the elite of the psychological profession in Israel. I was tested and examined by everyone. I was a circus freak. I was an absolute circus freak. I was moved from place to place, from Tel Aviv to Haifa to Beersheba to, you know, everywhere. Everyone wanted to see me. Everyone wanted to talk to me. I think I was a celebrity before the age of celebrities. Don't forget that I'm as old as some of the dinosaurs. And, well, I've met some of them personally. I even gave therapy to one, committed suicide. And
so it worked.
It worked. Can you see any dinosaurs around? No. So, but I'm really, you know, a bit on the antiquated side. And so when I was diagnosed as a so-called genius, it was all very, very unclear. So all the professors of psychology wanted to. So I was a celebrity before the age of celebrities.
And you were being moved around a lot.
Yeah.
Which, from my.
And all the media and government ministers were coming to meet me in my hometown. And then they made my hometown into a city. And
so forgive the cheap psychoanalysis, but that means that was normalized for you to be a celebrity, to be talking to ministers, people in position of power, professors, the elites of countries, and to move a lot.
Move a lot.
And you continued that.
The entirety of my life was shaped at that stage. First of all, entitlement.
Right.
Start with entitlement. I'm a genius. You owe me. I mean, I should be ahead of the queue. I should be out of the line. I jump. I don't finish anything gradually. Like school is 8 years, year after year after year. No, I mean, I start school, I go to university. I go to university. I go to medical school. I mean, everything was desultory, itinerant, peripatetic. Everything was very chaotic and with jumps.
Hugely traumatic for a 12-year-old.
I wouldn't say traumatic, but shaping. It shaped me. And of course, I absolutely, to this very day, lack the most basic skills, socially and with women. Most basic skills. It's not that I don't know to charm women. I don't know what to do with them afterwards. No, but I mean, the most basic skills. Women keep telling me that I don't give a vibe of a man.
Right.
I mean, they're charmed, they're intrigued, they get close, and then they are absolutely repelled. And there's something creepy about you. You don't give a vibe of a man. It's sometimes you give a vibe of a child, and sometimes you give a vibe of a machine, but never of a man.
Yeah.
And I think psychologically I froze in time. I think at that age, 9, I stopped developing. And the reason is that we all react to reinforcements. My intellectual side was constantly reinforced. The more I impressed the adults, the more I came up with equations and solutions. I mean, the more important people I met, the more I was on television, the more I was. So my intellectual side was constantly reinforced, constantly rewarded.
Yes.
And so I said, what the hell? Why do I need to develop the other parts of me? I mean, I'll develop this thing. I mean, it works.
It's sufficient.
It's sufficient. It gets me places. It gets things done. And my whole family was privileged as a consequence, and so on. And so I regarded it as an adaptive life strategy to emphasize my brain and my mind, and to absolutely neglect everything else. And you know, when your other sides are not reinforced, and there is a dominant side which constantly yields excellent results and gratifying results, emotionally gratifying, you say, okay, then Let's focus on this.
Yeah.
So all the rest is totally neglected. To this very day, I'm not an adult. I don't drive. I don't have a driving license. I don't have children.
Yeah.
I don't really have a family.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm married, but if you ask my wife, I'm not a man. I'm not a man. I know that because numerous women all over the world told me that. Different cultures, different societies, different periods. I don't know how to be anything but a brain in a carbon-based jar. My jar is carbon-based, which I deeply regret. But that's all I am. I'm a brain. And all my interactions are geared towards impressing the living hell out of my interlocutor.
And also, you were as a child genius. It's a diminishing asset because a 9-year-old genius is an incredible thing. So is a 17-year-old genius. 27-year-old.
Not to mention 57-year-old genius.
Not so much then.
You have to work much harder.
Much harder.
Escalation, you remember? Remember our previous talk?
Yes.
And I said this, in order to remain unique or to be noticed or to be seen even, you need to escalate all the time.
Yes.
So I'm intellectually escalating.
Right.
I never deviate from what I believe to be the truth and so on, but I work extremely hard to be original and creative and to come up with these shocking insights and to connect things and so on. It's still working. I have 20 million views on YouTube, so it seems to be working to some extent. It's still working. I still participate in many documentaries and so on, so still I get the attention that I need.
Yes.
But it requires a lot of work.
And the raw fascination of a 12-year-old with an IQ of 180. People will fly from all over the world to come and just spend 5 minutes with you. That can never last. There does seem to be a consistent pattern with that personality disorder when there is a sense of it's leaving. Yes. Do more, as you write, you said. Escalation, yeah.
And I think the ultimate form of escalation is psychopathic narcissism.
Right.
I think, in other words, our need for attention had become such, owing to population explosion, owing to new media, our need had become such that the majority of narcissists will inevitably end up as psychopathic narcissists if they're capable of it.
Right.
Intellectually and otherwise.
I
think that's the next phase, next evolutionary phase of narcissism, I think, is this. And that is a serious danger to the species. Because the species can tolerate a single psychopathic narcissist at the head of the administration. The species can tolerate 10,000 psychopathic narcissists spread across a 3 million workforce, 3 million strong workforce. In dilution, if they are diluted, if they are like sparse and far between, they may even, as Kevin Dutton suggests, may have even some positive. But if all narcissists become psychopaths, trust me, we're in extremely serious trouble.
Yeah.
And if society becomes narcissistic, society will become psychopathic.
Yes.
So I fully believe there is an absolute total equivalency between collectives and individuals.
Yes.
I think collectives go through the same developmental phases.
Yes.
They have the same personality disorders or other mental health disorders. I think the DSM, written in the plural pronouns, can fully apply to collectives.
You think you could take that and just apply it to a nation state, to a culture?
When I wrote an article called Narcissistic Collectives and so on. So what I did there, I took the DSM-4 set of criteria and I just changed the pronoun. And immediately you can see that it perfectly fits Nazi Germany.
Yes.
I mean, not a word needs to be changed. Not a word needs to be changed. Collectives, because we discussed it yesterday, we have a kind of hive mind. We tap into each other. We, in very subtle ways, adapt to each other. In order to prevent conflict and in order to enhance collaboration. It's a survival strategy. If there's a tiger, better agree with you. Otherwise the tiger will eat you and then it'll eat me. I don't care about you, but So we better be okay. So,
as you said before, altruism is this thing that if it's not cooperative and it's not reciprocal, it kind of becomes pointless unless you have...
And inefficient.
It's inefficient,
It consumes resources.
Yes.
So, and in families, usually this is the type of altruism. So I think that we have this hive mind. And I think because society is becoming more and more narcissistic, There will be a tipping point, of course. When society will become psychopathic. Collectives which are exposed to abuse become narcissistic. We know that.
Yes.
The Jews are extremely narcissistic. That's an anti-Semitic statement by a Jew.
Yes.
They're extremely narcissistic because they've been exposed to repeated abuse and escalating abuse over 2,000 years.
Well, you can earn a persecution complex, can't you?
Yes, you can develop paranoid, persecutory delusions or persecutory perceptions. And usually narcissistic defenses are provoked by abuse. Abuse is intolerable if it goes beyond a certain stage or lasts for long. So you then have two options. You can react with trauma. So we have complex PTSD. You can react with trauma, or you can react by pretending that you are not you, by divorcing yourself. The locus of the pain, the residence of the pain is in yourself. If you divorce yourself, you divorce the pain. But how do you divorce yourself? Well, you say, I'm not this, I'm this. And this, the external this, is what I call, and Kernberg called, false self. That's the false self.
Yeah.
The false self is a decoy. It is a firewall. Remember yesterday I told you that what I think has happened with smartphones and so on is that they made us more narcissistic, and in this sense we are using our smartphone as a firewall. It firewalls us.
Yes.
We become this unit that is separated from the hostile viruses and malware of the external world with our smartphone. Yeah. So, and we also hold it in a defensive posture. We hold it like this.
Yes.
I mean,
and as soon as I'm anxious or bored, I pull it out.
Yes.
So that I don't have to look at people.
Exactly, it's a go-away thing. It's a go-away gesture. We could have designed, everything can be designed differently.
Yes.
We could have designed smartphones differently.
Yes.
We could have designed smartphones, horizontally instead of vertically.
Yes.
Horizontally, it's much more difficult to block yourself. I mean,
Yes.
imagine the smartphone was like this. Yeah. It's much more difficult to hold it like this. But we didn't.
Yeah.
We designed it vertically.
Yes.
So that it's much easier to hold it and shield yourself.
Yes.
It's utterly defensive posture.
It should be a Spartan shield, and it should be on the inside of the shield.
Yes. And it's coming, smartphones, and smartwatches, and so on.
Yeah.
Google
glasses, yeah.
And so on. So we are withdrawing.
Yes.
We are withdrawing into narcissistic bubbles. It's a process of atomization. But I think whole collectives are becoming more narcissistic owing to abuse. So Jews reacted like that. Russians have reacted to centuries and then decades of
Do you think
abuse.
the Serbs, the same thing?
Serbs are narcissistic. Russians are narcissistic.
Yeah.
Jews are narcissistic. Many Muslims are becoming
Hugely
narcissistic
narcissistic.
because they perceive colonialism and its aftermath as forms of abuse.
Yeah.
Abuse yields narcissism. Americans elected Donald Trump in big part because they felt abused by globalization. And
I think we're seeing the beginnings of a narcissistic response in the UK. This feeling of being
Maybe
put upon by immigration and all the rest of it, the reaction to that is a narcissistic, infantile defense.
Yes.
Where everything is reduced to these stupid, ultra simple, totally unnuanced simplifications of reality, so that something must be done. Something must be done.
The beginning of narcissism is splitting.
Yeah.
Me good, you bad.
Yes. Yeah.
It's the beginning of narcissism.
Yes.
An external enemy, an external threat. So migrants, the Jews, or whatever. I mean, so it's the beginning of narcissism. I think ultimately most societies will become narcissistic because the threats are real.
Yes.
So most societies, but what I don't know is if whole societies and collectives will be pushed beyond the point of psychopathy. Again, if you have a single psychopath on the block, Adolf Hitler, you can defeat him with another psychopath, maybe Stalin. But what do you do if everyone is a psychopath? What do you do if all human societies and cultures and countries and nations and collectives are psychopathic, not narcissistic, psychopathic?
It has to be a zombie apocalypse.
It will be what Thomas Hobbes called Leviathan. It will be the end of humanity as we know it. It will be an absolute fight for survival. It's not true that psychopaths cannot make coalitions. They can make self-interested coalitions. They can even collaborate. And many psychopaths are creative, and they end up as pillars of a community and in positions like chief executive officers and so on. Baby Akinhere proved that 3.5% of all chief executive officers in North America are psychopaths. They have they have a result of higher than 30 on the PCLR, which is extreme psychopath.
Yeah.
Serial killers have this.
Yes.
3.5% of all chief executive officers in North America.
Yeah.
And they are chief executive officers. So they are capable of productive work, creative work, collaboration, coalition building. It's not true that they are consensus building. It's not true that antisocial means asocial. People make this mistake a lot.
Yeah.
They think antisocial means asocial. Not so at all. But many psychopaths are also in prison.
Yeah.
Many psychopaths are serial killers. I mean, we will have these deviances and perversions and dangers, and they will be at a much heightened level. Much heightened level.
In your case, was there, aside from the traumatic and destabilizing events of being a child prodigy, was there in your home life, was there traumatic circumstances that you think contributed to the formation?
I had the unfortunate confluence of co-occurrence of on the outside being idolized, literally idolized. I was treated as an absolute national treasure. I mean, there were articles, he's the biggest genius since Maimonides. The physicists were comparing me to Einstein and saying that I exceeded him and all this kind of thing. I mean, I was a kid. You must understand, this is absolutely mind-warping.
Yeah.
So I had the very unfortunate accident in life that on the outside I had been utterly idealized and idolized with no mitigation. But at home I was exposed to life-threatening physical abuse and verbal and psychological abuse, which bordered on a concentration camp, which was as arbitrary as any SS guard, and as life-threatening, by the way.
So extremely sadistic, extremely psychopathic.
Psychotic, I would even say.
Psychotic.
Psychotic. It was a result of psychosis, now I understand.
Rage, these were rage-fueled attacks.
Well, when your mother takes your head and pushes it into the sharp corner of an oven, and obliterating your skull, it's a bit of a traumatic experience.
Yeah, yeah.
Or when she burrows her fingers into your arm and takes out the veins and shows them to you. It's also a bit of a traumatic experience. So I was exposed to this for 12 years.
Yeah.
At the very same time, idolized on the outside. Now, this is what you would call simultaneous intermittent reinforcement, where you are getting utterly mixed signals as to your self-worth. Are you a bad object? Are you worthy of such degradation and life-threatening sadism? I mean, is your life worthless, actually? You know, on the one hand, and then who to believe? To believe the professors who say that I'm a unique creation.
You're an angel, you're a demon, it's heaven, it's hell.
It creates, I think the source of trauma is never certainty. I think the source of trauma is when you get conflicting messages. If you as a child grow up in a family where your father tells you that you are no good, worthless, bad object, and your mother tells you the same, and your aunt, and your grandfather, and your teachers, and I don't know who, you may grow up to be a criminal. Distinct possibility. But you will have no trauma, no mental problems. You will be sure.
You wouldn't have a personality disorder.
Yes, you will be sure who you are.
You're just a scumbag.
Yeah, I'm a scumbag, and that's it. I was born a scumbag. I am a scumbag. I'll always be a scumbag. I mean, identity coherence and cohesion is crucial.
Yeah.
It is when we get conflicting messages, sometimes from society. Take, for example, incest. The father sleeps with his daughter. Imagine that they do it on an isolated island where there's no one else.
Yeah.
Pitcairn, where it happened. The mutineers of the Bounty disembarked on Pitcairn Island and established a tradition of incest, institutionalized incest.
I did not know that.
Right. You're not well versed with your perversions.
No,
you should take
I
care
should
of
do
that.
better.
Yeah. So, but imagine incest. Imagine father and daughter, and the daughter is born on the island. She's never been exposed to anything.
Yes.
And they're having sex. Do you think she will be conflicted or traumatized? Of course not.
That's normal.
That's it.
That's life, yeah.
That's life. That's reality.
Yeah.
When would she be traumatized? When another shipwreck will bring a psychiatrist to the island. The psychiatrist will tell her, do you know what's going on here? It's horrible. Your father is a fucking pervert. Incest is unsupportable. It's going to damage you. I mean, it is the conflict between what society tells you about incest and what your father is telling you about incest. It is this conflict that creates the trauma. There is no trauma without conflict, which would explain perfectly why a group of people are exposed to the very same experience and not all of them are traumatized.
Yes.
Depends crucially on context and conflict, inner conflict. So I was conflicted from the very beginning. I not only got a message that I'm a bad object and maybe not so bad object. I got a message that I'm a bad, utterly decrepit, decadent, decomposing bad object.
Yes.
And utterly perfect, brilliant, godlike, angelic object.
Yes.
It is this total discrepancy that created my narcissism. And here I want to say something. I want to say two things about narcissism that I've never seen said by others. I'm trying to redefine narcissism. I'm developing a new treatment modality called cold therapy, dubbed cold therapy. Of course, I would call it cold therapy. I'm a psychopath. Why would I call it warm therapy?
It's not going to be kind therapy, is
it? No way. It's cold and horrible. So, but when I'm one of the things I have to do in order to get this therapy to work, and with 40 odd people, it worked perfectly. People diagnosed with NPD. So one of the things I had to do, I had to redefine narcissism. And I did it in several ways. First of all, I decided, and I think I'm in the position to to express an opinion, shall we put it this way. I decided that this whole thing of narcissism is a regression, narcissism is a defense mechanism, narcissism is a personality disorder, this whole thing is utterly mistaken. But I mean utterly, hopelessly, disastrously mistaken. This is why no therapy works with narcissism. And in which sense is it mistaken? First of all, I regard narcissism as a post-traumatic condition. If it is a post-traumatic condition, there's hope, because we know how to treat trauma.
Yes.
We do not know how to treat personality disorders, but we know very well how to treat trauma. If we redefine narcissism, pathological narcissism, we say, wait a minute, it's not a personality. Personality is okay. We don't need to work with the personality. The personality is there and it's okay. It's healthy, everything is okay. But it went through trauma. It's a post-traumatic condition. We know that people who went through trauma are much less empathic, for example. It's classic reaction to trauma.
It's a survival response.
Yes, I mean, you withdraw. I mean, you think only about yourself and your circumstances and so on. So maybe lack of empathy in narcissism is simply post-traumatic reaction. So that's the first thing. Second thing I said, narcissists are treated as adults. A narcissist goes to a cognitive behavioral therapist. What are your negative automatic thoughts? You should absolutely get rid of them. What the hell? You're talking to a 9-year-old.
Yeah, 9-year-old has no idea
what automatic thoughts? What on earth are you doing?
Yeah.
No wonder it's not working. It's a child.
Yeah.
So I regard narcissism as an arrested development. Disorder of development, developmental disorder, coupled with attachment disorder at an early age.
Yeah.
So I'm using techniques in cold therapy borrowed from child psychology.
Okay.
Not a hint of adult psychology in any element of cold therapy.
Okay.
That's the second thing. But coming back to the point that you made, one of the insights that I suggested is that narcissism is a form of multiple personality disorder, or more precisely, dissociative identity disorder. I suggested that the early trauma, and Walker said it, but I think I said it 15 years before him, that spoiling and pampering are forms of abuse and abandonment.
Yes.
Actually, this exact sentence is in my book, so I was a bit miffed. Following the trauma, I think what happens is the personality splits. Elements of the personality, which are very primitive and infantile, like grandiosity, omnipotence, omniscience, like perfection and brilliance, like splitting, and so on. These elements coalesce and are projected, thrown out, and become a false self.
Yes.
And I show clear equivalence or clear, I clearly map the inner structure of a typical patient with multiple personality disorder and the typical structure of a narcissist. Because
it has an equivalent.
yes, very powerful equivalent. A narcissist is someone can be described as someone with a multiple personality disorder, but with only two personalities, while someone with classic multiple personality has 3 or 4. But the false self would be the host personality. What we call host personality in dissociative identity disorder, that would be the false self in the narcissist.
Okay.
And the true self of the narcissist would be the child in the because every multiple personality, every person with dissociative identity disorder has a child in pain,
Yes.
a hurting child, and a host. And the host protects the child in dissociative identity disorder.
Okay.
In multiple personality. There's a host personality, and the host personality interfaces with the world.
Yes.
So it has what we call ego functions.
Yeah.
It interfaces with reality and so
Doing
on.
the job of an ego, but in an odd, split way.
Yes, it's actually an ego. It's kind of projected ego. So, and the host protects the child, defends the child against pain and so on. All the pain goes to the host. It's exactly what false self is doing.
Yeah.
It's exactly the role of a false self.
Yeah.
So why not say that narcissism is a dissociative identity disorder with 2 personalities? Simple.
Yeah.
Why is that important? It's important because we are extremely successful at integrating personalities in dissociative identity disorder. Extremely. If you just think of narcissism in a different way, it is suddenly totally curable.
Yes.
If you think of it as post-traumatic condition, we know how to treat it. Dissociative identity disorder, we know how to treat it. Child with arrested development and attachment disorder, like reactive attachment disorder, we know how to treat it. If you think about it in these ways, we can cure narcissism. That's the news, the breaking news.
Yeah.
The reason we were not able to cure narcissism is because we misconstrued it. And we were trying to treat something else.